So next up is a current serving Bobby, Ian, Head of Public Protection at Lancashire Constabulary, to talk about police perspectives and the changing landscape of multi-agency working, and particularly improving Lancashire Constabulary's response to safeguarding issues in children. So thank you very much, Ian. Thank you for coming along today.
Described as a nice chap, I'm not sure. Okay, first thing, everybody, if everybody can just stand up for me. Just kidding. I've got your attention. I'm going to apologise up front because I've known I'm coming for a couple of weeks, but I've really been struggling. I've had headache, sore throat, coughing quite a bit, and I was wondering whether there was any opportunity for a diagnosis in the room. But I think I know what it is. And I was just checking on Wiki to make sure I was right. But I came across British Medical Journey. So what it says here is that man flu is defined as a cold or similar minor ailment as experienced by a man who is regarded as exaggerating the severity of symptoms. But however, since half of the world's population is male, deeming male viral respiratory symptoms as exaggerated without rigorous scientific evidence could have important implications for men, including insufficient provision of care. So I want you to go easy on me. There is a bit of a link, actually, because I've had the benefit of sitting and listening to people during the course of today. And one of the big things that I'm going to talk to you about is around behaviour and attitudes, and in particular, empathy. We all have very, very challenging jobs. And one of the things that I've noticed in my organisation is pretty much everybody that comes and applies to be a police officer or a police member of staff, I'm pretty sure they pretty much all say the same thing on their interview. And I'm pretty sure, without fail, every one of them says, I want to help people. I know that because that's what I said, and that's what people that I speak to say. But something happens, doesn't it? Something happens after the first 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, I don't know. There's some academic studies I've read around nursing, which talks about the levels of empathy in nurses, literally just post-initial training. You'll know more about this than I will, but I think the same applies in the police. And is it about coping mechanisms? I was listening earlier to, personal resilience. Is it about coping mechanisms? Is it about how we manage some of the distressful things that we see? I don't know. But one of the things that we've got to be really careful of is that we don't lose empathy. I do have a presentation slide because I was told I had to have one. I might or might not follow it, so if I go a bit off, just bear with me. I am Head of Public Protection for Lancashire Police, but I'm not going to stand here and suggest to you that I'm an expert in safeguarding. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because I actually know, because I've bumped into them, seen a few people who I know have got an awful lot more knowledge in this room than I have about safeguarding. What I do know a little bit about is workforce, people, and how we design services that can help us to protect people. And I do know a little bit about safeguarding. And most of us in the profession that we're in, we do what we do, I'm pretty much sure we do it because we care, because we're proud, because we want to make a difference. 12 months ago, I had to deal with this. It's going to keep flicking forward. This was a headline that the media reported. Personally and professionally, this hit me quite hard. And I know for a fact that a lot of the people in my organisation who look after children and safeguard children took this very personally. But what it made me do, it stopped me in my tracks, and it made me really think about, as an organisation, what's happened and where have we gone wrong. We've had the benefit between, I think, about 2000 and 2009 of having quite a lot of investment in the police service. And what we did is, every time we had a problem, we created a specialist team. That's great because we've got a specialist team that look after that. Yeah, does it sound familiar, any of this? And then about 2000, 2009, 2010, things started to go a bit wrong financially. However, I'm not going to bleat on about money because from what I hear, quite rightly, the health service needs an awful lot of investment and the police service has already got too much money, I'm told. So I'm not going to bleat about money. But we're struggling to maintain some of these specialist teams because the headcount's getting smaller, there's less people, less of us, specialist teams are quite difficult to resource. What I realised was that we had quite a lot of our knowledge was sat in pockets of individuals and people. So where we had specialist child abuse investigators, they were very highly skilled. We had multi-agency CSE teams, a lot of people with an awful lot of knowledge about those particular things and were very, very good at what they did. And as you can imagine, took this quite personally. But when I reflected, what I realised was we've got a staff of 4,000 people in our organisation. And actually, this is everybody's business. And actually, everybody, and we as an organisation, hadn't really invested in everybody and it being everybody's business. My challenge to you here, and the purpose of me being here really, is to ask you to ask yourself some difficult questions. Because I think I'm probably, by the nature that you're here, preaching to the converted around safeguarding. For me to stand here and tell you how important safeguarding is probably would be a waste of my time, because you probably wouldn't be here. But how ready are your organisation, how capable are your organisation, how well equipped are your staff at spotting the signs? Do they have the tools and do they know what to do? So, in very simple terms, this is my strategy for Lancashire Constabulary. So, safeguarding is everybody's business. But I was interested in what Paul said about not being a fan of tick boxes. And I am not a fan of tick boxes. I'm not particularly a fan of tools unless they're the right tools, but certainly tick box exercises, and I'm not a fan of at all. And because what it encourages people to do, I think, is leave the brain at the door. Okay? A lot of this stuff that I'm going to talk to you about is about those simple conversations, those very basic conversations that are going to make the difference between you keeping somebody safe or not by asking some very, very simple questions. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you what the questions are, okay, because they're the questions that you know to ask. If you forget about the tick boxes for 5 minutes, stop and think about what you're here to do. I've also had the benefit of working with a few people in this room, so I've got to be careful how much credit I take. I'll take it all because I'm on the stage, but I'll get heckled afterwards. So I had the benefit of 2016 leading a multi-agency review of Lancashire's safeguarding hubs, and there are people in the room who I absolutely credit with the success of some of the work that's been done to date. But I learned a lot through that. One of the things that I learned is that we fundamentally don't understand how each other's services operate. We fundamentally don't understand the roles of each other's organisations. And I say this generically. Some people might have more knowledge than others, but I say it generically. And it's really important, this, because if we don't understand what each other do and what each other's roles are and what each other's offer is, then how are we actually going to make sure we get the right services in place to actually protect people? So I thought about what the key levers for change in my organisation were, and how we were going to get ourselves into a position where this was no longer seen as specialist work, and where everybody in Lancashire understood that safeguarding, and particularly safeguarding children, because that's the bit I'm concentrating on today, is everybody's business. I'm going to go into a couple of these, but I won't bore you, but there's a number of factors. Needless to say, changing the culture of an organisation of 4,000 people isn't something that comes overnight. I could give them all a new policy. I could send them all on a training course, and we did. I could tell them they've got to do X, Y, and Z. I could give them a tool. I could say, you've got to fill these boxes in. But ultimately and fundamentally, what I want is to actually change the way people think about the role that they do. The reason you're all here, I think, is because you are, regardless of your position, you are all leaders in your organisation. And that's not about role or rank or specific where you sit in your organisation. It's about the fact that you care about safeguarding of individuals, yeah? And so when I talk about this is you and everybody in this room. And what I want you to do is I want you to think about when you go back from today, what are you going to do differently? Or what are you going to encourage to be done differently? I was really interested to hear the conversation earlier around how you can sort of acquire professional development through attending things like this. We're not quite that advanced in the police service, so I was quite interested in some of the references that were made around that. But the big thing for me is, if you go away and you don't do anything differently, what was the point of you being here? And I want you to think about that, because I attend a lot of conferences, not just to speak, but to listen, and I hear things and I learn things, and I'm not sure every time that I have the time to reflect and think about what the difference that's going to make when I leave the room. Because it's dead interesting, perhaps not listening to me, but some of the other people certainly were very interesting, weren't they? So what are you going to do differently when you go back? So we started to try and speak to our staff to understand what they needed in order to deliver a good service, because I tell you now, this is not a people problem. And anybody, there's a few people in the room that do know me, know that I will always say this. The performance of a system, the outcomes at the end, are a direct result of how that system is designed to perform. Okay, this is not a people issue. Okay, my experience is most people come to work to do a good job. So if that's not happening in terms of, not they're actually the person not doing a good job, but in terms of outcomes, then something else is going wrong. So we started at a fundamental level to speak to the workforce to say, okay, I've highlighted some deficiencies in the organisation, not by us, but through inspection. And the sad thing is, for most of our organisations, it takes that before anything actually changes. Somebody said earlier on, until it becomes a financial issue, nobody wants to know, yeah? Finance and inspection, it's the only thing that changed anything. Sad really, because we all want to do it, but these are some of the things that actually make it happen. So some of it was around awareness. So we had the benefit of a small budget to look around how we were going to raise awareness in our workforce. And the people that came in, and we did the Think Child, See the Child. And what this was about is, it's about this. It's not hidden, it's not looking, it's exactly the same thing. So what was happening is, our staff were going out and they were going to jobs day to day, and they were dealing with the jobs, and they were coming away and they were going to the next job. And what they were missing is they were missing the peripheral vision around what was going on. When they were in that house dealing with that domestic abuse incident, or that criminal damage incident, or that drugs warrant, or whatever it was, or that drink driver, okay, they weren't asking the right questions. And they weren't asking the right questions because they didn't have the level of awareness around the difference they could make. So what we looked to do initially, and this isn't a sales pitch, and this isn't saying Lancashire Constabulary are great either. I want to be really clear about that. I want to talk to you about some of the problems in the organisation that you might want to reflect on and just ask yourselves if they exist in your organisation or not. Okay? Because I think most of these issues probably exist in most organisations. So the idea is an awareness campaign to say, see the child in the incident. If you're dealing with a drink driver, okay, do they have children? Where are those children? Are they in the car? If this person's choosing to drive whilst under the influence of alcohol or drugs, then is it a one-off? Is it likely to happen again? Where are the children in this situation? Okay, domestic abuse incidents, I probably don't need to tell people in the room, but there are massive, and it was great to see the ACES stuff coming. There are huge emotional, psychological, long-term consequences for children in domestic abuse settings. I don't need to tell you that, I know I don't. But what do we do about the children when we when our staff are going to the report of a domestic abuse incident, maybe there's no allegations made when they get there, maybe nobody wants to make a complaint. What's the expectation? So I talk about a moral parental responsibility. It's not legal, don't have a legal duty as such, but in my mind there is a moral responsibility on services that come into contact with children to take a moral parental responsibility for children's safety and safeguarding. Because somebody else might not be doing that already, or somebody else might not be doing it well enough. So we talk about hidden in plain sight, the idea being that the eye represents the child in any situation, just in case the marketing didn't work. I hope you got that before, otherwise it was a waste of money. So these things, so if you go into a police station in Lancashire now, these things are plastered in every building that you go into. And the idea is just to raise awareness. Are you looking for the child? Some of the things that we did were quite deliberate and processy. We made it mandatory for our communications team that were deploying police officers to the scene of any incident to ask, is there a child present? Have you checked on the welfare of the child? Is there any further action needs taken to safeguard that child? Every single incident that we attend. Because you don't know, do you? You don't know when you attend. You don't know by the type of incident that's being reported whether there's a child at risk or not, unless it's a child-specific incident. But actually, we're quite good at them. These are the ones. These are the ones that we don't see. And then we're making it relevant. So we've looked at what do our staff need. We did work in the control room. Recording's a big issue, isn't it? You'll have this the same as we all have this, don't we? If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. If you didn't record it, so what we find a lot of time is our staff doing some really great work and then they don't record it anywhere. Really frustrating, because they're trying to do a really good job, and then we're not recording it, so we're not capturing it, so we don't actually know whether we've kept somebody safe or not. So for our control room staff, we said record what you hear. We could go to a job. We could deploy a police officer to a job who turns up, domestic abuse incident. There's nothing happening when they get there. There's no complaint. But the control room operator, they might have heard a kid screaming in the background. Yeah, it's a different context. How do we manage that? So we did do training, and we invested a lot, and it's really difficult this, because despite being hugely overfunded in the police service, getting access to train our staff on that sort of scale is quite a challenge. But what we have done is we've committed to and completed 2 full separate days of child protection training for every one of our frontline staff in Lancashire Constabulary. And actually, in hindsight, that represented a previous underinvestment in my mind in terms of what our staff needed. So our staff said, well, we get it, you're telling us it's not good enough, what do you want us to do? So, okay, well, we'll make you aware these are the things you want to do. Okay, well, how do I do it? Okay, what are the basic things that you want me to do? You tell me you want to keep your kids safe, but what does that mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to any of you in your day-to-day job? This is what you practitioners want to know. What is it exactly you want me to do? And it's the simple, basic things, okay? It's not being a safeguarding expert, okay? It's asking the simple questions. It's come up time and time today in the conversation, hasn't it? Asking that extra question and the difference that can make to somebody's life. I did a little bit of work on missing from home this time last year, and we spoke to a group of people who regularly were reported missing to the police, and we spoke to some people who had historically been reported missing to the police as well. And we spoke to one young lady who was in her 20s now, and she would have been, in police terms, a troubled teen. She would have been a problem child. She was regularly reported missing, and we would regularly be called and deployed to go and find this child. And guess what? We're going looking for this kid again. Yeah? And it's the 5th time we've been looking for this kid, and haven't we got better things to do? So we go and find the kid, who's usually in the public park area, And we pick her up and we put her in the car and we take her home. Job done. And then we wait for her to go missing again. That's the police perspective. And this young lady in the 20s said to me, said to a group of us actually, the problem was that what you were doing is, there was a reason I was in the park. And the reason I was in the park was because it was a public place. And in a public place, I wasn't going to be raped and abused by my step-parent. The person who you took me home to every time you found me belittled me and shouted me down and told me how naughty I'd been and presented back on the doorstep to leave me there again with my step-parent. And it's actually quite difficult to say that, isn't it? And a number of our staff sat and listened to this lady, and these are the sorts of things that make a big impact, aren't they? These are the sort of things that start asking you the questions. And she also said, and something that I heard earlier again, if somebody had asked me, if they'd asked the right question actually would have been pretty straightforward about what's happening to you. At some point I would have told somebody. But actually, is she going to tell the person who's scooping up out of the park, telling her what a problem child she is, throwing her in the back of the police car and driving her home to the person that's abusing her? Is that the person that she's going to confide in? So, part of the training, it's not about which boxes you tick. It's not about which forms you fill in. We had people with similar experiences who we put in front of our staff to talk to them. And when we're really busy, and we are all really busy, sometimes these things present themselves as a problem. Have I got an extra 5 minutes? If I ask that question, is it going to be another 30 minutes? But they present as a problem. And it's not because people don't care, it's because everybody's busy and everybody's missing what's actually in plain sight. You just have to ask. So we've also got an app. I laughed because I saw Kenny's presentation before I came. I thought, well, I was in a national app. But... So I've downloaded, I am one of the 700,000, I've got the app. So one of the things, so for staff, our staff, as yourself, 24-hour service, most of our child protection specialists tend to work days. There's reasons for that, mainly around the partnerships and the work they do, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, where do you go to make sure you get the right advice, to make the right decisions, to take the right action? So some of it is about making sure people have got tools, and it's not about making it black or white, and it's not about making it follow this procedure and everything will be okay, but it might be, who can you go to, who can you pull on for support, what support's available, and how can you help in this particular situation. One of the other things that we've done is, on a similar vein actually, is you cannot train 4,000 people in an organisation to be experts in public protection. And actually, despite this being an absolute integral part of their job, they've got an awful lot of other things they need to know as well, as have yourselves. So where do they go to get the right information? And these were the things that our staff were asking. What our staff wanted to know is, tell me what you want me to do, tell me how I can do it, and give me the right knowledge and skills so I can do it, and who do I go to, and where do I go? So one of the things that we've done is we've trained 100 people as child protection coaches, and we're giving them, I don't know if this is a technical term, I use the term advanced practitioner, I think it means something a bit more formal in other terms, but we're giving them additional skills, additional knowledge, additional training, somebody they can go to and ask the question. Yeah, somebody that's on 24/7, and somebody they can access to ask the right information. This is really important for our staff. They need to get good advice to take the right action at the front end, yeah? Get it right first time. Because if we don't, and we don't ask the right questions, we might miss the opportunity. So, I'm a bit geeky, a bit academic-y, and done some stuff, and started to think about this, put this together for today, and I was trying to think about what we were actually trying to achieve. So, the first bit was around awareness. Do our staff actually know? Do they know what's expected of them? Do your staff know what's expected of them? We would have said, I think we would say, well, of course they do. We've sent the guidance out. We've put it on an email. They've had a global email. In fact, we've sent 6 out this. How many global emails do your staff read? I know mine read none of them. In fact, I can't confess myself to not passing through a few myself. So what's the awareness? Okay, so are they aware of what the issue is? Have they got the knowledge and understanding of skills? And this isn't complex, this is the basics. Do they know the basics of what they need to do? But the most important thing, and the bit that I want to get us to, is this bit. Because it's actually about attitudes and behaviours. It's about empathy. It's about my man flu. It's about human beings, isn't it? It's about human beings, and it's about every child we come into, or vulnerable person. This applies across the spectrum, doesn't it? But every person that we come into contact with, we joined to help people. We joined to keep people safe. So let's not get caught up in policy, procedure, bureaucracy, all that stuff. Let's just get the basics right that we need to do to keep people safe. So, how do you know if you've made a difference? So I can say, we've done all these great things. Done all these great things in Lancashire Police. Well, so what? What difference does it make? It's really important to understand. So if you've taken action, and if you're going to go back and take some action to improve the awareness, knowledge, and skills of your staff around safeguarding, then you need to put some checks and balances in place to make sure it's landed. Okay, you need to be sure that email, that global email, was actually read and understood by all 4,000 people that received it. Because I'm pretty sure in most cases in my organisation it isn't. But we've done a staff survey, so our staff survey will tell us, and I'm pretty proud of this actually. I put it on there because although it's not a sales pitch, I'm pretty proud of some of what we've achieved. And I think, with the right level of commitment and the right leadership, and I'm not talking about me there, I'm talking about all our organisation, you can make a difference. So 84% of our frontline staff say they understand more about their responsibilities to protect people from future harm. 86 people have an improved understanding of the voice of the child. This is hard hitting for me because actually, if you know any cops, you'll know they're pretty cynical. If you give them this type of thing to fill in, there are a few that might be inclined to say something nasty. But so for 86% of them to say that, I think is progress. The other thing that I'm going to talk to you about. How long have I got? 2 or 3 minutes, right. So the other side is this bit. So safeguarding in a complex environment. One of the big things for our staff is, he said, right, when I finish dealing with this incident, you're telling me that I need to seek additional support for these people to keep them safe. Where do I go? Okay, so for those of you who do or don't know, we have our own internal referral system, PVP system. But most of our staff, and this isn't their fault. This isn't me criticising our staff. This is about the culture and the way the organisation operated. But their responsibilities started and ended with filling that referral form in, and not taking personal responsibility and ownership for what was presented in front of them. And this is the problem with tick boxes, referral forms, thresholds, and all the rest of it. This is about taking personal responsibility and ownership and actually doing something. But what you need in order to do that is you need to understand what's going on in the system. So the work that we did in the MASH over the last couple of years, we took a group of professionals, some of you are in the room, from health, from children's social care, from the police, from other agencies. And we basically set about fully unpicking and understanding the system as was operating. And one of the biggest findings for me was that those people who worked in that environment, in the same room, doing the same, apparently the same work, had absolutely no understanding of each other's work or what they did. And because of that, their responsibility started and finished where they believed that their bit in the system was. So everybody had ownership, but nobody had ownership. And actually, because nobody knew what anybody else did, everybody made assumptions. And everybody made assumptions that somebody else was doing something else. Okay? At its worst, the way that presented itself was a whole host of processes in 150 steps. I've lost track, I can't remember, I've told this tale so many times. 150 steps in a process to send an email to a drug and alcohol service that didn't even exist. But that was the process. That was the process. So I say it didn't exist, that's not fully factually incorrect, but it is for the purpose of the exercise. Well, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But my point is, as professionals, we need to understand how each other work. If we don't understand how each other work, then we can't understand the benefits and what's available and what the offer is and how we can collectively keep people safe. Because the police can't keep people safe on their own, and neither can any other agency. And there's a whole host of work that we can do to get together. Part of that is understanding. My offer to you, for anybody that works in this area, is if you think there is some benefit from your staff better understanding my service, come and speak to me. And likewise, I would do the same. Because as soon as we get in a room together and start exploring this stuff, people say, God, I didn't know you had to do that. What do you mean you don't do that? Oh, I presumed you did this. All these things that are getting in the way of doing some of the really basic stuff and taking ownership of what needs to happen in that situation. So my challenge for you is, what will you do differently? What difference will you make to help shape the system? How will you work collectively with other partners? And how many assumptions are you currently making about the capability of your workforce and understanding of your workforce in terms of safeguarding? And you may be doing a really good job, because there's a lot of really good work going on. And it's not for me to stand here and criticise or tell you you're not doing a good job, and that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, you need to get into the detail and understand it. You need to get into the detail and understand it, and you need to make sure that you're asking some really basic questions, because some of my perceptions of where our workforce were at were not accurate, and there were assumptions that I made about things that I expected them to know that they didn't know, and they didn't know because they hadn't had the right support. It wasn't their fault. So some food for thought, I hope. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for asking some really deep organisational questions. And we've got lots of different organisations that work within urgent care. Not a question, but thank you. And get well soon. Ah, isn't that nice? Hey! He'll be asking for a sick note next. And what a radical idea about getting human beings in a room talking to each other. You know, that's radical stuff, isn't it? Yeah, and we could probably make an app. But I'd like you to take you up on that offering of getting people together in a room of all the interested parties and start to talk about how we work. And
absolutely. Yeah,
so I want to take you up on that. Okay. Can you minute that if you've got minutes? Right. So, where do we want to start? Are there questions in the room first? I know he's a policeman, but he's not that scary. No? Yeah? Okay. So is the awareness campaign available to download to third parties? Put on staff notice boards?
I'll take it back, and I have no issues with this personally. We paid an external company to do it. We do own it. I have no issue if people want to use it. If it's useful to you, then I have no issue with that. You'll just have to take the Lancom logo off it and put your own logo on it. But yeah, I have no issue with that. Yeah.
And then a question around comms and the issue around comms. Is it just Lancashire and National?
Yeah, so the work that we've done in contact management, we have a single contact management room for all of Lancashire, so that covers Lancashire. What we've actually done is when you place a call via 101 or 999 into the control room, we have indicators now, so I don't like tick boxes. We have indicators, as long as it's not a tick box. Can't get away from process as much as I try. So we will flag indicate vulnerable child, vulnerable adult, mental health. The idea really being that it enables our frontline supervision to prioritise those cases that need particular type of attention.
This is a really great question. Raising awareness around mental capacity, probably, I don't know, dementia and severe mental illness maybe springs to mind, and being targeted.
Yeah, so I've talked a lot around children. Yeah, there is a lot of work around vulnerable adults, whether that's around financial abuse, emotional abuse, dementia and domestic abuse. There's a whole host of things around the vulnerable adult agenda. Perpetrators who target vulnerable. Yeah, so we have an integrated offender management unit. We look at those individuals that pose the most risk around domestic abuse. MAPA that some of you will be interested around management of violent offenders and sexual offenders. So we have a whole group of perpetrators, who we target, who are a risk.
Great, and just this final comment, not a question, and I want to echo the sentiments of Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. Great to hear you and your team have made such positive improvements safeguarding children, an example of organisational learning, and I'd like to echo that and thank you very much. Ian, thank you very much. Thank you.